How to understand our emotions so that we can take charge and experience the health benefits. So, emotions are a call to action. Why do we need to understand emotions? Well, our emotions can affect our energy because when we're experiencing stress, then this creates tension. So, when we experience tension, this affects our energy production. Looks like I'm not actually broadcasting to Facebook, so apologies for that. Don't know why that's happening. But if you are watching on YouTube, just let me know you can see me and hear me. If you don't know me, my name's Simon Pimenta. I had CFS fibromyalgia for 8-9 years, and at one point I couldn't walk for 1 minute, but I did get to the point where I was able to work again, play sport again, live an active life. And I create lots of free strategies and resources to help you move towards your goals. What really helped me was mind, body, and practical strategies. So Tony Robbins talks about emotions that some people label as negative or difficult emotions as being action signals. And I'm going to be talking about his work, his approach to dealing with these emotions that we often find uncomfortable. I don't view them as negative. For example, if we feel angry, there's good reasons for that, and that anger is a call to take action. So I'd be interested to know how you label those emotions that you find uncomfortable. So do let me know. So at the moment I've been doing a course over the last year called Mindbody Reconnect. Some of you may have heard of Claire Caldwell, who created this approach, and she talks about the fact that we have what she calls authentic emotions, which come from our emotional brain, and these authentic emotions have a message for us, and they are a call for action. So let's dive into this. I will add some of my thoughts about this as well, and I'd be really interested in your thoughts. Your job is to gauge whether my descriptions of emotions and their meanings is a good fit for you. You might have a different perspective, a different interpretation. So feel free to share that because it will be useful to other people. So consider that it is really important to, number one, listen to our emotions. Number two, make sense of our emotions. And three, take appropriate action. So let's just talk about that first point, listening to your emotions. It's really important that we allow our feelings because, as I said just now, these are the emotional brain communicating to us that something either feels good or doesn't feel good. And it is a call for us to take action. So it's important that we allow those feelings. We don't judge them, we don't ignore them, we don't belittle them. Tony Robbins talks a lot about changing the feelings. I think one way of changing our feelings is to allow those feelings and allow that part of us that is feeling something that is important to be expressed rather than immediately shifting our state. Shifting our state is useful. I think it's also important to gauge when it's important to just be with those feelings and make sense of those feelings. So for each of these emotions that I'm about to talk about, it's useful to allow yourself to feel the emotion, but we don't want to live there. Fourth point, so just to recap, first point was listen to your emotions. Second point, make sense of your emotions. Third point, take appropriate action. Fourth point is that we need to notice the difference between perception and emotion. An example of a perception, if I say, I feel rejected, that's my perception of the situation. Whereas if I say, I feel sad, then that's my expression of the emotion. Notice the language. If I say, I feel rejected, then there's a kind of insinuation that the other person is rejecting me. And that might be my perception. Okay? So just notice that difference, perception, emotion. Point 5, it's useful to remember a time when you dealt with this emotion. So maybe there's a time when you felt anger, frustration, fear, anxiety, disappointment, or hurt, and you dealt with that situation. So maybe think about that now. Just what's an example of a situation where you felt one of those feelings, but you actually did manage to deal with it. It's really useful to remind ourselves of that, especially when we're experiencing the intensity of the emotion. Sixth point is I'd encourage you to cultivate the belief that you can handle these emotions. So Angela says video is intermittently freezing up. Thanks for letting me know, Angela. Let me just check. Yes, okay. I wonder if I might have to move then and plug in to the router direct. So I might just do that. So just give me a moment whilst I change things around a bit. Okay? Hang on, maybe I'll just put a message on here saying, hang on. I can't, for some reason, can't type on my iPad. All right, let me know if that's still happening. I think there is an issue, so I'm going to move location. All right, so just bear with me. This is going to take a little moment to just set up. So I'm just going to pop it back on here for the moment. So I am still here, but I'm just going to change my location. So bear with me. So just have a think about that. What's your example of a time when you experienced a challenging emotion, but you did deal with it? And as I say, the sixth point is just cultivating that belief that you can handle whatever comes your way. Okay, so I am just moving, so bear with me. I'm still here, but I'm moving location. So pop your answers in the chat. Just let me know when's the time when you had a challenging emotion and you just dealt with it. Okay, I'm just changing my location, so just give me a second. So I am going to be back with you just in a moment. Okay, so I shall be back with you in just a second. I'm having to just change my location. If you've just joined, thanks for sticking with me. So here I am. I'm in a different location, so let's just change things around a bit. Okay, So thanks for sticking with me. Just let me know if there's an improvement in the reception. And let's get into talking about all the different emotions. I'm going to cover 5 today, and next week I will cover another 6. So the first emotion is anger. So anger is often related to being irritated, angry, resentful, might be fury, might be rage. Let me know what's your experience of that. Maybe Can you think of a time recently when you were experiencing anger? Consider the message of this emotion. This emotion may be telling you that an important value or rule that you have has been violated. And it might be that it's been violated by someone else, or it might be that it's been violated by you. So, for example, you might experience someone being disrespectful, or it might be that you've done something that you're cross with yourself about. Maybe you binged on biscuits because you're upset, or did something else that you recognise wasn't very useful. So consider the solutions. First thing to ask ourselves, so Lavender to 12 is saying better now. Thank you for letting me know that. Solution, excellent. That's great. I'm just trying to think. Lavender 12, are you familiar to me? Is this the first time you've watched, or have we crossed paths before? Your name rings a bell. So solutions to anger. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? It might be that it's anger, but consider often we're feeling hurt. Okay. The second point is to change the perception or meaning of your experience. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. And the third point is to change your actions or behaviour. So, for example, let's say, you've been disrespected by someone. I had a couple of experiences recently where kind of people were communicating in a way that I just felt wasn't very constructive. Someone said on one of my YouTube videos, dummy, about something I was saying. Someone else said, I'm in one of my videos that I'm being myopic. And in the past, my instant response to that would be to feel that I was bad or wrong, that I'd done something wrong. I might get into judgment and anger towards that person because I was feeling now bad about myself. What I've learned is that I can change my perception and the meaning that I give that experience. Instead of interpreting that interaction as being something about me is wrong or at fault, I could just decide that this tells me something about their belief system, their style of communication. All right. So the person who's kind of name calling me a dummy, maybe that's how they communicate. The person who says you're being myopic, well, that's again a style of communication. Personally, I find it more interesting and useful to say, if I was disagreeing with someone, actually that seems to be one way of looking at things. I look at it this way, and I think your way is a bit limited. Have you considered this perspective? Okay. So Angela's also saying better now. Thanks for letting me know. Lavender saying fear of not having enough energy to go to an event. Yeah, so I understand that. So thanks for sharing that. Okay. And we'll come on to that. At the moment, we're kind of exploring anger, but we will come on to fear and anxiety, so because that's an important issue. So consider that, I could retaliate in kind if someone's kind of calling me names, or I can model a different way of communicating, maybe responding with curiosity, with gentleness. And actually, in relation to someone saying that my perspective was myopic, I realised I could have responded with a bit more curiosity. Okay, so Lavender saying was able to listen to the emotion. That's great. So that's my goal, is to model a better way of communicating. I don't always achieve it, but if I notice I'm feeling angry, then there's something in me that's being triggered. It's good to make sense of that and to consider how I can respond with some dignity, not to kind of bring the level of conversation down. to the level that the person's operating at. That's without judgment, but it is just saying, well, actually, that's not a level where I want to function. Let's say, for example, I do binge on biscuits because I'm feeling upset. I might be cross with myself, but I could recognise that, you know what, I'm doing my best. This is my current strategy. You know, it is a way of getting some relief from those feelings of upset. I could also explore new strategies. A new strategy might be to identify what I'm feeling, to acknowledge those feelings, and to consider what I want, what I really want. You know, maybe I'm feeling upset. I want to feel good. Well, what are some other ways of feeling good? And I can explore some of those strategies. I will share a strategy that I touched on, that I tapped into this week in dealing with boredom. So I'll talk about that next week. And actually it really worked. So if I identify a new strategy, I then need to practice that new strategy. It's Penny. Good. Thanks for letting me know. And that's very interesting, your name, because it was a password for a place that I work at. So that's very interesting. I know who you are now. So that's anger. All right. So next one, frustration. So often this emotion comes from having a sense of, you know, where you want to get to, but there's a gap between where you are and where you want to get to. All right. And you might feel the frustration because you feel like you're not making the progress you want. You're putting in the effort, but you're not seeing the results that you would like to see. So the message may be that this emotion is telling you that you believe you could be making more progress than you currently are. So what are the solutions then for this emotion? Well, firstly, is that we need to change our approach. Okay, we need to become more flexible. So for example, if I'm frustrated that I'm here and I want to be here, I might recognize, well, there are things that I'm doing that are stopping me from closing that gap. So for example, you know, when I had CFS, and I suspect this is something that other people will relate to, that anytime I had energy, I would boom and bust. I would use more energy than I had, and then I would experience a setback or a dip again. Another strategy that I still do at times, especially when I really need not to do it, is to have late nights. So I find actually the times when I have late nights are the times when I really need to not have a late night. Sometimes I have a late night and it's completely fine, but the times when I think actually I'm really tired are the times where I think, oh, actually I'll just finish watching this film. Whereas actually I know I'd really benefit from an early night. So that's the first solution. Change your approach. Become more flexible. Second strategy is to find a role model, someone who has found a way to achieve what you want to achieve, and model them. Okay? Or, you know, get a coach. Third strategy, get fascinated by what you can learn from this experience to help you handle this challenge. And fourth point, remember when you felt this way before and found a solution. Okay, so just let me know, to what degree do you relate to frustration? Having frustration because you know where you want to be and you just feel like you're not there right now. Just let me know if that's something you relate to. And it's fine if you can let me know if you're watching the replay. It's always interesting. And also just to let you know that your comments help other people find this video. So if you do find it helpful, do leave a comment. So that's frustration. Let's talk about fear and anxiety. So I talked a bit earlier about the difference between authentic emotions that come from our emotional brain, from our body, and what we call thought-generated emotions, which come from our thinking brain. So fear is an authentic emotion. Let's say you open your front door and at the gate is a tiger licking its lips because it's hungry. Now you're going to have an instantaneous response, which is your authentic emotion, which is fear, okay? It's instantaneous. Whereas the feeling of anxiety is a result of your clever thinking brain saying, oh no, there's a hungry tiger and it wants to eat me. Now you're going to feel anxiety. So that feeling of anxiety is generated from your thinking brain, which is a bit slower than your authentic emotion. Okay. Now let's say the next day they caught the tiger, that it had escaped from the zoo, it's back in the zoo, but the next day you're walking towards the front door and you remember that there was a tiger there, and you say, well, what if another animal's escaped? And so you start feeling that anxiety that's been generated by your thinking. Okay. So obviously if you're experiencing fear because there's real immediate danger, then we need to take immediate action. If you're just about to cross the road and someone steps into the road because they're on their phone, they're not concentrating, and there's a juggernaut lorry coming along, you're just going to grab them. You're going to take immediate action. You're going to pull them off the road. They're going to go, what the? And then they're going to realise that you saved them. All right. With anxiety, consider that this emotion might be telling you that you have some concern about something that is going to happen, and it's useful to do some preparation for it. So, for example, often people say, I'm a bit anxious about going to the doctors. Well, consider what preparation you can do. Consider what questions your doctor might ask you, or what things that they might say based on your previous experience that aren't helpful. Think about how you might respond to those things. So you've got some stock responses. You might even do a role play with a friend or family member to help prepare you for it. You might take someone with you for support. So, there was a time a while back I was giving a presentation with Dr. Eleanor Stein. Some of you may know her. And she told me the night before the presentation that 300 people had signed up. I'd never done a presentation to 300 people, so I had this instantaneous body response of fear, okay? So the solution is to review what you're fearful about, okay? I've created an exercise called the Resilient Mindset Method. If you'd like that PDF, which gives you a way of identifying the worst scenarios and then identifying the optimum scenarios, and it's a little exercise that I've used to help me when I had to give a speech at my daughter's wedding, and it made a massive difference. So if you'd like that, pop the word mindset in the chat and I will share that PDF with you. So that's the first thing. Review what you're feeling fearful, anxious about. Second, check your perceptions. For example, if you're giving a speech, if I'm giving a speech, am I putting pressure on myself that I have to be perfect? All right. I could take the pressure off myself saying, you know what, I'll be good enough. Okay, I don't have to be perfect. Next, identify what actions you need to take. And then the next point, take action. So for me, it was practicing my presentation. And then the final thing I need to do in that situation was to remind myself that actually I was ready. I'd done enough preparation and I was going to be good enough. And actually, I think about 100 plus people turned up for the live session. I stopped looking at the numbers after it got to about 30. And even though I did feel some nerves, I got good feedback and I was happy with what I did. Okay, so let me know. Yeah, so Penny saying can relate to frustration. And just let me know in relation to anxiety, is that something that you experience in relation to something that's coming up? And maybe we'll, so we could talk about Penny Lavender 12's comment of fear of not having enough energy to go to an event. So consider that couple of things. One is if you've got an event coming up, and I totally get this because this is something I used to do, I would be kind of generating a lot of anxiety about it, because having that anxiety that I might not have enough energy, but actually that was depleting my energy. Okay. And I was working with a client a while back who wanted to do something to go to a kind of party that her local town has, and there was some anxiety. And so we looked at some strategies to help her, and this is what I'd encourage you to do. So, one of the things she recognised is that she could kind of do some brain rehearsal, just visualising the event, visualising, first of all, getting into a nice relaxed state, visualising the event with her just getting in the car, feeling relaxed, driving into town, seeing a few landmarks, and every time she saw that landmark, just it being a reminder to just, again, breathe in those feelings of calm and confidence. Okay. And then to also give herself freedom that if she was going to an event and at any point she felt she needed to go and have a break, go and sit somewhere quietly for a while, she could do that. And any time she felt, okay, that's enough, I need to go home now, that she could do that. And she found that by giving herself that flexibility, then that gave her, more feelings of safety. Now, so let me know, Penny, whether those tips resonate or whether your situation is slightly different. It might be sometimes we don't necessarily have the freedom to, maybe we're relying on someone else for a lift, but consider your options. It might be, you could go and sit in the car for a bit and just close your eyes. I remember one time being at a wedding and I wasn't feeling great. So when everyone was going outside taking the photos, I just went and found a quiet place in the church for half an hour, closed my eyes and just did some relaxation. It did mean that I wasn't in the photos, but that was okay. All right. So let me know whether that kind of gives you a little bit of food for thought. So that was the third point, the third emotion, fear and anxiety. Fourth one is disappointment. Okay. So this emotion is about feeling letting down, feeling that maybe you have the belief that you're missing out on something, and we're kind of giving ourselves the idea that it's forever. Now, of course, we might have missed out on a specific event. However, there are going to be other opportunities in the future. Okay, so this emotion may be telling you that you had an expectation which isn't going to happen, that results in understandable disappointment. And as I say, in terms of solutions, the first is to allow that feeling. Okay, I teach an exercise when I'm working with people to separate the part of us that is wise, that has that pragmatism, sees the bigger picture, says, yes, I might be missing out on this event, but there's going to be other opportunities in the future. And the part of us that is feeling that disappointment, that upset, you might consider that part of you like your inner child. Okay, so you allow that part to have a feeling, allow that part to express itself, and you listen and let that part know it's heard. Okay. Other strategies when we're ready to move on is to focus on what you want now. Well, if you're thinking, well, actually, I do want to have more freedom to do the things I want to do, then, okay, we need to then think about what goals do I need to set myself? Again, to close that gap. If I feel that this is my capacity here and I want to be here, what can I do to close the gap? What small steps can I take? All right. So we want to consider what steps we can take to change our life conditions. So, my client had the view that her energy was improving and therefore she did have the capacity to do more, and she recognized she needed to remove the anxiety from the situation and work towards building, kind of taking small steps to help her progress and to test herself in small ways. So just doing a bit more in a way that felt safe. Okay, so the next thing is to realize that the situation isn't over yet, okay? Your life is not over yet, okay? We may need to develop a bit more patience. And the final point is to cultivate an attitude of positive expectancy that good things are around the corner, okay? And the things we want will be available to us in the future, okay? So the fifth and final one I want to talk about today is hurt, okay? So this emotion often shows up in relationships and is often associated with a sense of loss, okay? The message may be that you've an expectation that has not been met. So in terms of solutions, you might need to communicate your feelings of loss to the person involved. You might need to communicate your needs. You might need to communicate, when you say that, what you've just said, I feel hurt. We might need to negotiate. Would you be willing to communicate in a different way? So, for example, someone made an accusation towards me recently, and it wasn't a very, it was a bit daft comment. And had I felt that the relationship was important, I might have said, is it possible you could communicate in a more constructive way? Would you be willing to do that? So it might be also important to focus on what the other person needs. If they've hurt you, maybe they're experiencing some hurt. So what is it that they need, okay? Also, it's useful to reevaluate the situation. Is there really a loss here? The reality might be that you haven't lost anything. You've just experienced some unskillful communication. Okay? So, they're the first 5 emotions I want to talk about. Next week, I want to talk about discomfort, inadequacy, overwhelm, loneliness, guilt, and shame. Okay, so Samantha says mindset. Okay, Samantha, I will share the link with you for that PDF. Penny says, Lavender 12 says, yes, great tips. I went and sat in the car. Excellent. So that's great to know. So just to let you know, at the moment I'm finishing my training in something called Mind-Body Reconnect, which I mentioned at the beginning of this call. And as part of that, I have to do some case studies. I've got 2 case studies, 2 places for case studies left. Okay, so if you're interested in finding out more, there is a cost, but it is half of what I normally charge. Comment the word case below and I'll tell you how, or you can click the link, I think, on the homepage of my YouTube channel, and you can send me a message and I will send you the details and you can decide whether it's right for you. So as I say, next time I'll talk about discomfort, inadequacy, overwhelm, loneliness, guilt and shame. So if you've got any comments, questions, pop them in the chat. If you've got any feedback, any takeaways, do let me know. It's always useful to get people's takeaways, and your comments might help somebody else. So thanks for watching. If you were trying to watch on Facebook, apologies. For some reason it wasn't broadcasting there. I see a few more people have joined, so thanks for joining me. Keep going. You've got this. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.